The Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, formerly known as the Federation of Saskatchewan Indian Nations, is a Saskatchewan-based First Nations organization. The FSIN represents 74 First Nations in Saskatchewan. The Federation is committed to honoring the spirit and intent of the treaties, as well as the promotion, protection and implementation of the treaty promises that were made more than a century ago. Precursors to the FSIN include, in 1919, the establishment of the Indian League of Canada, based in Ontario, that led to the League holding an annual congress in Saskatchewan. In 1921, at the Thunderchild First Nation. In 1929, the League of Indians of Western Canada is formed, with John Tutosis of the Poundmaker First Nation the first president. In 1933, a group of Saskatchewan, Treaty No. 4 First Nations, Pasqua, Piapo, and Musqueam, known as the Allied Bands, reorganized to become the Saskatchewan Treaty Protection Association, then later, Protective Association for Indians and Their Treaties. In 1943, the Association of Saskatchewan Indians, led by Joe Drever, is formed and quickly grows to become one of the largest bodies representing First Nations in the province. Then, the Premier of Saskatchewan, T.C. Douglas, became involved. Premier Douglas was concerned about the plight of First Nations people in Saskatchewan. He was interested in helping to unite the three major First Nations organizations in the province. Chiefs and leaders gathered in Fort Qu'Appelle in 1946, amalgamating provincial groups to become the Union of Saskatchewan Indians with John Tutosis as president. The union was created with the merger of at least two other groups: the Protective Association for the Indians and Their Treaties, and the Association of Saskatchewan Indians. In 1958, the First Nations leaders gathered in Fort Qu'Appelle once again, and reviewed the constitution of the Union, replacing it with a new organization that more fairly represented the First Nations reality: the Federation of Saskatchewan Indians. And organized as a non-profit, it was decided that the organization be looked upon as a federation of bands and that the power reside in the hands of the chiefs. The union dropped its non-profit status and evolved into the Federation of Saskatchewan Indian Nations at the Convention of 69 Saskatchewan Indian Chiefs in April 1982. The political convention outlined a governing structure that consisted of the chiefs in assembly, a senate, an elders council, an executive council and an Indian government commission for the FSIN. In May 2016, the FSIN chiefs in assembly voted to change the name to the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, retaining the acronym FSIN. The intent of FSIN and its precursors was the defense and protection treaty rights, land and resources, and came from the desire to foster economic, educational and social growth of their people. Government policies ensured that First Nations farmers found it difficult to farm. With the advent of SIAP, and ended in 1995, though another source states 2002, SIAP aimed to promote interest in the agriculture industry, develop economically viable farm units and to improve the productive capacity of Indian reserve lands. Alex Kennedy envisioned farming and agriculture as ideal initiatives to regain lands leased out to non-Indigenous farmers and carve out an agricultural economy for Indigenous communities. A significant component of the SIAP strategy was education and training courses to integrate both farming techniques and farm business literacy to prospective First Nations farmers. In 1977, SIAP was described as originally intended to establish 350 individual farm units over the initial 5-year period. However, the thrust of the program is being modified with major emphasis now on the development of large. In 1993, Ken Thomas made a presentation to the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples, outlining the successes of the program. Gerald Starr, a Tom Longboat Award winner from 1952, manager of Star Blanket Farm, is recorded as chairman of the board in the 1980s. Quote, although small portions of present-day Saskatchewan include lands from Treaty 2, Treaty 5, and Treaty 10, over many years the FSI attempted to be recognized and participate in discussions and decisions around the repatriation of the Constitution of Canada. These efforts are reported in the Saskatchewan Indian. In April 1982, the First Nations signed the Federation of Saskatchewan Indian Nations Convention and agreed to unite in a common front to protect and preserve First Nations treaty rights and their political, economic, social and cultural characteristics. In 1989, the FSIN and the Government of Canada agreed to create an independent and impartial office, which, at that time, would serve to research and provide recommendations on the issues of treaty land entitlement and education for First Nations in Saskatchewan, called the Office of the Treaty Commission.